Hey, what's going on, guys? Tom here, and I want to talk about why I returned the Leica Q3 43 after just a few days of using it and testing it. So hang out, let's chat. If you want to just skip to the part where you agree with me or get mad at me, you can use the timestamps below. But I want to have an objective chat about this camera because I know Leica has very polarizing following, whether it's pro or anti, and I am neither. I'm just a guy that likes cameras and taking pictures. So let's chat about it now. So I've never had any interest in Leica cameras historically because I never really cared for manual focus systems. I use manual focus for my product photography, but anything outside of that, I love autofocus. It's faster than me, it's more accurate than me, it gets the job done. I don't have the patience for manual focus, so I just never thought about Leica. Rewind back a couple of months, and my buddy Mike was in Japan, and he was posting, I'm not even exaggerating, probably hundreds of photos on his stories. They were amazing. And I don't know if it's the quantity of them, because it was just like flipping through a photo book, like a coffee table book. And he's got a great eye. He always takes great pictures. And I don't know. I never think that it's the camera that is doing the work, obviously, because it's the photographer. You can take great pictures on a Polaroid camera. But there was something about the clarity and the quality of these images that I couldn't put my finger on. So I messaged him and I said, dude, please don't say that these are iPhone pictures because I'm going to be depressed. So he said, no, I got this Q3 when I was in Tokyo just now. I got a good deal on it and I've just been messing with it. And it's like the pictures were just amazing. It just is what it is. So I started going down the Leica rabbit hole because now all of a sudden I'm interested in Leica. Forgive me, but it's true. I thought, all right, maybe there's something to this. I know a lot of people that shoot Leica, they take great pictures, but they take great pictures with any of the cameras. But anyway, if you're like me, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been shooting since 2003. So I'm always chasing perfection and the better thing because that's human nature, I guess. It is what it is. But, maybe I'll get this camera and then, in the words of Tom Bukovac, I'll finally be happy. So I knew that 28 millimeter is not my focal length of choice. I really like 40 because I like 35 and I like 50. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Or the best of none, really. I don't know, but I really like that focal length. So that was the obvious choice for me versus the 28. I started watching a ton of YouTube videos, of course, and I'm learning about how the RGB lines up perfectly in this lens and it's never been done and all that stuff. And I really, I really just said, let me just take a look at it and just see what happens. And I kind of thought to myself, after 20 years of shooting, why not treat myself to the creme de la creme of cameras and get the best of the best? Let's get this trophy camera, quote unquote. Let's just get the system that everybody lusts after, and let's just see what it's all about. So I talked to a few other friends that have Leicas, and they gave me their pros and cons, and everything was kind of net positive. So I took the plunge. I spent $7,380 at B&H and another $250 for a thumb grip. We'll get to that later. But I ended up getting the camera in one business day, and I was greeting to the unboxing experience that somehow screams luxury and recycle me at the same time. If you guys have ever seen the unboxing videos of them, you'll know what I mean. And I will say also, one thing that I planned to do if I kept the camera was I wasn't going to talk about how I bought it. I wasn't going to tag it on social media. I just wanted to let my photos stand on their own because I feel like a lot of times people have to attach their identity to the brand or try and make it like, oh, this picture's great because I shot it on a Leica or I shot it on film or whatever. I want my mediocre photos to stand on their own. So let's jump into the pros, of which I think there are many. Immediately, the first thing I noticed was the build quality. Everyone says this thing feels like a tank, and it's true. It feels really, really solid. It's less than 2 pounds. It's definitely on the heavier side for a point and shoot, but if you're old school like me and used to walk around, doing travel photography when you're out on a trip and you had a 5D Mark I with a 24-70 banging on your chest like a toddler headbutting you for the entire day, then you understand that under 2 pounds feels really nice. So I think it's a good compromise. And I'll say that all the dials, the aperture ring, everything just felt so good. Like, it just felt so refined, and it's something that you really have to experience in hand to appreciate. And it was something that I immediately was like, I get it now. Moving on to the lens, the hype is real. The lens looks, the photos are great. The color's great, the saturation's great, the contrast, the sharpness, everything looks really, really good. So I will say that I do get it. And while we're talking about the lens, the macro mode is amazing. It's right on the lens. You don't have to fish for any buttons. You can just pop it right into macro mode. I really enjoyed that. The resolution is huge, which is really good if you like shooting in the crop modes. It's not something that I do a lot, so it's also a con, but I'll get to that in a minute. The EVF was really nice in my opinion. I thought the magnification was great. I feel like on some cameras you kind of feel like you're looking through a pinhole, but on this one it felt very immersive, and I felt like the color was really nice. The camera is weather sealed, which to me doesn't matter in terms of like going outside, because I don't shoot in the rain or whatever. I'm an indoor cat. I just like nice weather. I don't want to be in the elements, but it is good to keep the dust out of the camera and off the sensor, which I really appreciate, because who wants to send in this beautiful camera, beautiful expensive camera, to get cleaned? The menu system was very simple and easy to navigate, unlike some people, Sony. And I just felt like it was really a really nice breath of fresh air coming from pretty much trying everything across the board. They also have some nice film sims, which they call Leica looks, and I thought at least 3 of them were very usable. And in my experience, I really just like having 2 color and 1 black and white to use and kind of rotate out, and that's the way I shoot. So that was exactly what I liked in this system. I saw 2 nice color ones and 1 nice black and white, and we're Gucci. And lastly, the buttons were very easy to customize, which I can appreciate. So on to the cons. A lot of the things on this list were pretty much things that I knew were compromises, but I was willing to make the compromise for the image quality. I think in a cheaper camera, it would have been easier to dismiss. The thing that I kept feeling like I was saying to myself was, well, at this price, this should have XYZ. So let me explain. Buying a camera in 2025 without IBIS feels like buying a car without CarPlay now. Sure, you can use it the way it's always been used, but when I got a taste of IBIS over 6 years ago, it just made the shooting experience that much better for me. Whether I was using a longer lens and it smoothed out any shakiness, or even just hand holding a wide lens, it just smooths everything out and it just feels really nice to shoot with. So I was pretty bummed in my experience of handling the camera without having IBIS. There's also no ND filter. Speaking of long exposures, even if you shoot open wide, f2, the max shutter speed is 1/2000th, which is kind of not really enough for doing bright daylight wide open stuff. Even if you knock the ISO down to 50, it can be a little tricky. So it would be nice to have the built-in ND filter. And if you want to do some creative stuff and just do some slow shutter drag kind of stuff, it would be nice to have that. There's also no internal storage, which isn't a big con for me because I don't really need that redundant backup system. But if you're someone that does weddings or shoots portraits, it would probably be really nice to have that. There's also no second card slot, so that's, that could be a problem for someone too. Again, not a problem for me, but a con nonetheless at this price point. And when you think about the IBIS, the ND filter, and the internal storage, that's something that the 6-year-old GR3 system has for about $900. There's also no flash, which is something that my 2013 Fuji X70 has. And although I don't use the flash a lot, again, it would be nice to have at this price. The resolution is also a bit of a con for me because when I'm not shooting in crop modes, which is I would say probably 90% of the time, you have this huge 60 megapixel file, and those files really add up and start eating up hard drive space. And even though hard drives are cheaper now, it still just feels like overkill for what this camera is going to be used for me. While the camera looks great, it is the least ergonomic camera that I've ever used, and a lot of people compare it to a bar of soap, which I would argue it is less ergonomic than a bar of soap because most soap has a curve and it fits in your palm a little bit better. So, you could buy another grip and make it bulkier and not look as nice or whatever for another $500 or whatever. And of course, the last con is the price. I understand that this camera is made in Germany, therefore it costs more than a camera that's made in China, but the price is real and it is very expensive, especially when you factor in, accessories and taxes. It really starts to add up. So the deal breaker for me was the autofocus. When I did test photos of my daughter, I put the eye tracking on her, let her run around the room. I shot at like 250 or 500th of a second, higher ISO. The room's pretty bright. And I noticed that a lot of the pictures were out of focus. So I said, let me try this again. I'm going to have her, sit down when we have a meal, and I'm going to sit down and take pictures of her and just see what we get. So I was shooting her at like 3/4, and over 50% of the images were either behind her eye or in front of her eye, which was really frustrating to me because at this point, I really want to like this camera. It feels great other than the little, ergonomic stuff, but that's, that can be fixed with grips and everything. The image quality was amazing, except the autofocus was not good. I tried putting it into the little crosshair autofocus mode, and I put the crosshair right on her eye, and I got almost 100% hit rate. So I don't know if it has something to do with the system that it uses for autofocus, which I believe is contrast, not phase. Maybe that's the issue. I really don't know. Is it because Leica is newer to autofocus? I'm not really sure. I just know that my Fuji cameras never have this issue. And of course, I understand that the crop sensor has more depth of field, but the point is that the focus is always on the eye, or at least most of the time on the eye. With the Leica, it was mostly not in focus. So all of the amazing clarity and color and all that stuff kind of goes out the window when the eye is not sharp for me. I've had plenty of good experiences when I was shooting commercial work and I was doing portraiture with my 5DSR using a Tamron 85 1.8 wide open, and with a 85 you even have less depth of field. So, I was just super disappointed in this camera at this point. I really wanted to love it. I was willing to kind of look the other way from all the compromises with the lack of features. But again, when the image isn't sharp where I need it to be, then there's no point in having this camera at any price point, let alone this expensive price point. So then I started thinking about, what am I really after? I'm chasing this perfection from a camera, and I want to have the perfect system, and I want to have the perfect photo and the perfect clarity and all this stuff. So I thought about, what about just having fun taking photos with a camera that's lightweight, has a smallish form factor, and I already have that with my X100-6. Sure, there's a noticeable difference in image quality between an APS-C and a full frame, especially with the size of the Leica lens versus the size of a Fuji lens, but it's not as different as you would expect, especially when you look at something not at 100%, like if you're not pixel peeping or if you put something on social media. It's just the difference grows much narrower than when you're pixel peeping and you have stuff side by side. Especially when you factor in adding a diffusion filter or adding some grain, the difference even gets smaller. So if the Fuji X100-6 that I have could be 90% of the camera for 22% of the price, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road for me. Money is real, and when you think about what you can do with $7,500, it's kind of hard to ignore that. Currently, I've got the Canon R5 for work, and I've got the Fuji and Ricoh systems for my general kind of walking around snapshots and travel. And those are good enough for now, until Leica makes the Q4 43 that has IBIS, internal ND, and autofocus that actually works the way I want it to. Thanks so much for watching.